Jai Shri Ram. The choice between love marriage and arranged marriage for Hindus who were raised and live in India is a question between tradition and quote-unquote modernity that more and more young people have to grapple with over time. However, for those of us who were born and raised in the West, this poses a serious issue to the very core of who we are. While people who date and have love marriages in India do so within their own religious community the vast majority of the time, here in the West, when second-generation Indians choose to date, they generally date white people. This is true for Indian guys dating white girls, and it's also true for Indian girls dating white guys. I'm sure many of you have seen such couples in real life if you live in the West like I have, or if you don't live in the West, I'm sure you've seen that online and in media. In fact, something that I really find off-putting is that if you search my channel's name, Arjun from America, on YouTube, besides my channel, you'll find a couple videos of guys who, with the first name Arjun, who have married some white woman, and they've made a video about, their wedding and all of this kind of stuff. So, that's very unfortunate for me, I guess. Anyway, I have a lot of thoughts on this, all but one of which are negative. So I thought I'd start off with the one that isn't overtly negative. It's not positive, but it's not negative. It's basically neutral, which is that this is a very expected, natural, kind of a normal phenomenon to happen because of the homogenizing nature of living in America. America is a culture that's very superficially diverse in terms of Americanized versions of ethnic foods or the varied national origins of the many people that live here, but it's a very successful culture at diluting away the deep cultural differences of the people that do come here and replacing that with a new identity of being a, quote, American. And this is not just true of Indians, but it's also true of East Asians, Pacific Islanders, Africans, Middle Easterners, and so on as well. They all fall into the same trap of homogenization and, in this case, interracial relationships. As far as Indians go, we have a term for such people, coconut, which you all may have heard of because coconuts are, of course, brown on the outside and white on the inside. I've also heard East Asians using the term banana to refer to the same phenomenon in their culture of people being yellow on the outside and white on the inside. But I personally think that our term for coconut is better than banana because of the fact that a banana is white at its very core, while a coconut is hollow at its very core, which kind of speaks to, this empty space kind of connotes how empty and devoid of a true meaningful sense of self that these people are who are so divorced from their actual cultural roots. Anyway, the fact that these interracial relationships are a natural thing was the one thing that was not negative that I wanted to say on this topic, again, because of the homogenizing effects of immigration to the West, specifically America. So on to the negatives. First off, the kids produced by these couples are not going to be Hindu. Now, as soon as I say that, I know that the kings and queens of anecdotal evidence will jump on top of my head and give me some Carolina Goswami type of example of a white woman who was deeply culturally integrated into Hindu culture, this 1% of 1% of 1% of people. But there are very, very few instances of things like this that actually happen in real life. The vast, vast majority of the time, the white girl or white guy that a second-generation Indian Hindu ends up marrying is just a nominal Christian coming from a kind of nominal Christian family with a small level of cultural and spiritual attachment, or what have you. And the Indian person there is someone with a small level of cultural and spiritual attachment to their Hindu culture. So that's basically the maximum level of Hindu-ness that they're going to achieve within the children, and it'll either just plateau there or decline from that point. Now, the way that the kids of such couples are raised, whatever instruction that they get about Hinduism is very minimal, or it's just watered down in the kind of quote-unquote all religions are the same kind of a mindset. Again, people will screech about tiny anecdotal examples where this is not the case, But again, like I mentioned and like people should understand by now, society is not about anecdotal examples. It's not about an individual person here or there. It's about broad trends. It's about groups of people. It's about what the masses are doing and how they think and so on. It's not about what a handful of individuals are doing. So that's the first issue, that the kids of these couples are lost to Hindu society. Another negative of these relationships is that they're the perfect embodiment of the disconnection that these Hindus have from the idea of what marriage is supposed to be in our culture. Excuse me. In our culture, or in any traditional culture, basically, compared to what marriage has come to mean in modern Western society. We've all heard of this idea that Hindu marriages are the bringing together of two families as opposed to just two individuals. But the modern Western idea is, of course, just bringing together only the two people involved and no one else. And if the family objects on one side or the other, or both, or they feel that the spouse of their family doesn't really mix well with them, then that's basically just their problem and they have to deal with it. Also, we've also heard this idea that after marriage, meaning after an arranged marriage, that the couple will come to love one another over time. And of course, this is completely different from this modern Western idea that you first find love and then marry based on that. And then lastly, we have the idea of a pitrarana, an indebtedness to our ancestors, that we can only fulfill by actually having children in our own jati, carrying forward the traditions and the cultural continuity of that, and not just carrying forward the blood lineage. And I'd also like to end on this. It's all about lust and emotions in the modern Western world, or more broadly the modern world in general. If you look at these kinds of relationships, it's all just based on people are physically attracted to one another. They spend some time together, doing various things, including having premarital sex, and then they develop this kind of deep pair bonding with each other and all of that. So it's just about the attraction and the emotions. None of that kind of deeper level of passing on what is valuable that has been passed on to you, passing that on to the next generation, so on and so forth. That's not really considered. And the basic reason that I want to bring this to light is that a lot of times, like I had mentioned about these kind of very isolated examples of integration or symbolic gestures, people have this kind of knee-jerk reaction that whenever they see someone that's white, even barely interacting with Indian culture, there's this kind of huge celebration of, oh, they're coming into us and merging into us and so on and so forth. That's not really the case. That's also not true when we see such superficial things or symbolic things being done by second generation Indians, that, someone wears a kurta pajama, someone does a little ritual for, some god, or celebrates Diwali with crackers or something like that, that this is seen as being, oh, they're so in touch with their culture. This is not really the case. We have to understand that cultural rootedness, tradition, identity, and all of these kinds of things are far, far deeper than something that you can see on social media. It's something that comes across in how someone sees themselves, how someone sees society, family values, spirituality, morals, ethics, the way in which they relate to the larger society around them, who comprises the larger society around them. These are the things that really need to be understood and harped on and emphasized when we're talking about second generation people here in the Western world, especially when it comes to relationships. And I'm going to continue to talk more on other parts of this topic, not just relationships, but other things as well. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Jai Shri Ram.